Okay, prepping main bearing caps. These ones just have a little bit of air oxidation. It's just surface. It's not deep. It's not a concern. What I'm going to do is I take some 800 grit. You can't see it on here. I tore it off in a patch, but this is 800 grit. It's wet or dry. And I'm going to polish this just very lightly. It's not going to take any of the surface out. It's just going to take the, it's not going to take any of the diameter out. It's just going to take the surface stuff out. I'll go wet, then I'll go a little bit dry, and I'll show you as soon as I'm done here. Okay, so this took me about a minute and a half just with the wet sand. I dipped the 800 grit in some water, put it inside here, and you just go in a saddle pattern. Just sweep it down and come back, sweep it down, come back. And as you can see, it's gotten rid of that surface rust. It's got a nice clean polish there. No nicks, no gouges. Spin it around. So there you go. It's just, you're not digging into the diameter. You're just taking the surface rust off and giving it a nice polish. That's all that is. Okay, so all 5 of the main bearing cap journals now are polished. Nice smooth polished finish. Ready to put the crankshaft in. One thing you need to see is that on the number 3 journal, thrust washer is going to go into this area. You'll have 2 types. One with the tang that fits inside there like that. One without the tang that fits inside the block right here, as you can see. And those little black marks are grooves for the oil passage. Those have to face towards the crankshaft. The smooth side will face back towards this surface. So you can see there's a smooth side and a side with the 2 grooves. The 2 grooves faces out for oil to pass through. Smooth side against the bearing surface. So you have one on this side, one on the back side here, one on this side, and one on this side. Okay, I've got all of these. Can't really see with the lighting too well, but all these these are the lower main bearing caps. When the engine is facing regular side, these are going to be on the bottom. As we install them, they're going to be on the top because the engine's upside down. But these are all lubed up. Now, what you want to check is on the back side here, there's going to be numbers. Number 5 and the arrow going forward. So this is going to be your 5, which is the rear, and the arrow faces towards the front of the engine. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you set number 5 down where it goes. Just very softly. You don't want to nick the crankshaft or anything, and it's a very, very, very tight fit. So if you kind of get it started, just get it started, then hang on, I'll grab a rubber mallet. Okay. You want to make sure that you're semi-square. You don't want it obviously cockeyed this way, cockeyed this way. I've got it just started in there. Just started in there. If you come with a rubber mallet, you don't really want to use a big heavy hammer, just a rubber mallet, and just one side a little bit, the other side a little bit. Just come down slowly. Make sure that you don't knock your bearing out, because that can happen as well. Just softly, 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 softly. Eventually it'll start to come down and it will seep, but you want to make sure that that bearing stays in there. Here we go. It just dropped. I've got a tad bit left. As you can see, there's a little gap there, a little gap there. And I am seated. Seated on both sides. Now the other part that you want to make sure of is if you come up to the top, you don't want to be cockeyed going this way or cockeyed going this way. In other words, you want it straight up and down, nice and flush. So as you can see, you've got a little bit of wiggle here. You just want to basically set it where you got a good feeling there, because, and I'll show you, on this engine, on the side of the block here, it's going to get side bolts that hold it in right in there. So as long as you're fairly square and you know that you're fairly straight, you're not cocked this way, just leave it there for the time being, because once you go to bring this bolt in right in there, you can wiggle a little bit. Once that bolt is made, you know that you're definitely square. It can't be off. I mean, as long as you've got it threaded in there, nice and solid, it will hold it in place to where it's supposed to be. So I'm just going to go and set all 5 of these, and then I'll come back and start installing side bolts. One other note is, as you're bringing down the number 3 with the thrust washer on it, that's the one that you really want to be careful with, because these will have a tendency to fall out as well, these thrust washers. So come down slowly. And it doesn't matter if that lip right there is up a little bit, because as you come down, obviously, it's going to seat and it'll push that there, and it'll self-level itself out, as long as you're not way swung out with it hanging up an inch one way or the other. Just get it somewhat set. I put a little bit of lube on the backside to hold it to the main bearing cap a little bit better, just so it'll stick with a little bit of tack. And as I drop it, I'll be a little bit more soft with this one, just so that bearing doesn't fall out. But I will come back as soon as they're all set. Okay, I've got all the caps in. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all with the arrow pointing forward. I have not put any side bolts in, because I wanted to show you this rear one and the front one. Like I showed you, you can take the rubber mallet and hit here and here. These ones in here aren't as easy to do, because you've got to worry about the crankshaft. So what I did was took an extension, and you can tap down with the rubber mallet on the extension on each side, but then you have to go back through and take your air compressor and blow all these journals back out again, because any debris that comes off of here, as you're hitting, you might have something come off the rubber mallet. You want to make sure that all these are clean. So I'm going to go through and clean all these off again. But I want to show you is that on number 3, where your thrust bearings are, you want to rotate this slowly by hand. And as you can see, the tang is still there. Come to the other side. Tang is there. And as you come down, you should be able to move it, not see it move at all. You can take a flathead or a little pick-awl or something like that. Just give it a little tap to make sure that it's seated on each side. As long as there's no slop and you're seated, as you put these bolts in, it's going to suck it down and it will level itself out. But you just want to make sure that you're nice and set with your thrust washers, if they didn't happen to jam or get kind of cockeyed in there. Okay.